Lord, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are worshipable by universal prayers, Vedic hymns, and sacrificial ingredients. We offer our obeisances unto you. You can be realized by the pure mind, freed from all visible and invisible material contamination. We offer our respectful obeisances to you as the Supreme Spiritual Master of knowledge and devotional service. The qualification of bhakti, or devotional service to the Lord, is that the devotee should be free from all material contaminations and desires. This freedom is called vairagya, or renouncement of material desires. One who engages in devotional service to the Lord, according to regulative principles, is automatically freed from material desires. And in that pure state of mind, one can realize the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead, being situated in everyone's heart, instructs the devotee regarding pure devotional service, so that he may ultimately achieve the association of the Lord. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10:10 as follows: To one who constantly engages in the devotional service of the Lord with faith and love, the Lord certainly gives the intelligence to achieve him at the ultimate end. One has to conquer the mind, and one may do it by following the Vedic rituals and by performing different types of sacrifice. The ultimate end of all these performances is to attain bhakti, or the devotional service of the Lord. Without bhakti, one cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The original personality of Godhead, or his innumerable expansions of Vishnu, are the only objects of worship by all the Vedic rituals and sacrificial performances. So, it's described here that, and Srila Prabhupada also emphasizes in the purport, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be realized by the pure mind freed from all visible and invisible material contamination. So Srila Prabhupada points out that the process of sadhana bhakti will enable one to come to that stage by performing devotional service according to the regulative principles. One can become freed from material desires and contamination. And when one's mind becomes purified in this way, then it's possible actually to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Apart from that, this would not be possible merely by manipulating the material mind, that is to say, on a material platform, as scholars and jnanis and so forth may do. You cannot realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. God remains an abstract idea or a mere theoretical principle. But you won't actually know God simply by remaining on the material platform. So, the question is whether or not a person will engage in this process of Vaidhi Bhakti. So a person has to have motivation for doing that. Initially, one doesn't have this God realization. So without that realization, one must be motivated to pursue this process of bhakti according to regulative principles, so that ultimately one will be able to attain realized knowledge. So some initial faith is required. So of course the purpose of the Srimad Bhagavatam is to establish that faith in the aspiring devotees. And so the Srimad Bhagavatam gives an elaborate description of the nature of the universe. It starts with what one can directly experience within the material world and links that up with transcendental information concerning the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the main idea there is to enable us to understand the relationship between Krishna and the material world. If we can understand that, then we can understand Krishna's position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That makes it reasonable to dedicate one's life to the worship of Krishna, which is this process of bhakti yoga. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is intended to establish that faith in the individual. So Srila Prabhupada has pointed out on various occasions that the Bhagavatam begins with, the first 9 cantos, which describe in various ways the relationship between Krishna and the material energy. And then it culminates in the 10th canto, which directly describes the intimate pastimes of Krishna on a completely transcendental platform. So, here we're reading this passage on the appearance of Lord Varaha. So, what I thought I would do today is, just for the fun of it, go through some material showing how one can relate this to what people see in the universe. So the Bhagavatam is relating the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the material universe, but its perspective on the material universe is somewhat unusual from the point of view of what people are accustomed to in the Western countries. However, by studying what is said in the Bhagavatam and other Shastras, one can get some interesting insights on this. So I thought I would just go through some of it. One interesting thing to note is that in the next 2 verses there's a description of sort of poetic description of what it looked like for Lord Varaha to lift the earth on his tusks. So I thought I would read that. It's kind of interesting. Of course, this will be gone over tomorrow. But it's, O lifter of the earth with its mountains, which you have lifted with your tusks, is situated as beautifully as a lotus flower with leaves sustained by an infuriated elephant just coming out of the water. O Lord, as the peaks of great mountains become beautiful when decorated with clouds, your transcendental body has become beautiful because of your lifting the earth on the edge of your tusks. So it's an interesting poetic description. You can imagine a mountain in the distance with horizontal strata of clouds clustered around the peak of the mountain. So this comparison is made in describing how the earth looked when Lord Varaha lifted it up. So one point to make about the description of the universe in the Vedic literature is that this is a multidimensional or multi-level description. We're accustomed to thinking of everything as situated in 3-dimensional space. This is, of course, natural, because that's our ordinary experience. And in scientific studies, this is reinforced by descriptions of 3-dimensional coordinate systems and so forth. So it seems that everything is situated within 3 dimensions. However, if you directly examine the descriptions given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you can see that the universe is not really described that way. And so according to the Bhagavatam, the universe is not something that you can accommodate simply within 3-dimensional space. That would be true in this case. In the class I gave the other day, I pointed out that the earth lifted by Lord Varaha is the entire Bhumandala planetary system. And that goes out to the coverings of the universe. So that means that there's really no room to maneuver around that within the universe. The description that was given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that I read indicated that, in fact, there's a small gap between the edge of Bhumandala and the shell of the universe so that Lord Varaha can move it up and down. So also it gives Sheshanaga something to do in lifting the earth, because if it was rigidly bolted onto the outer covering, there'd be no need for that. So you can see, though, that that wouldn't give Lord Varaha very much room to maneuver to lift the earth. But yet it's described that he is doing so, and here we have this poetic description of of what it would look like. So the descriptions in the Bhagavatam refer to a universe that can be seen from many different aspects. There's one interesting analogy to help explain this, and that is the idea of virtual reality. I made that video, Simulated Worlds, to indicate this to some extent. But virtual realities are very big business these days, and probably they'll become much more prominent as time goes on. You can project a person into a computer-generated world through a suitable sensory interface. So the analogy I made in that Simulated Worlds video was that the actual universe is very much like that, in the sense that the spirit soul is projected into an unreal universe. In the very beginning of the Bhagavatam, it stated that this universe seems to be real even to the great sages and demigods, but actually it's not. So, what does it mean to say that the universe is unreal? Does that mean it's not there? Obviously, it's there. You can't get away from it. But the meaning is that this is an artificial construct in which the conditioned souls are placed so that they can undergo certain experiences. It is created by Mahavishnu by manipulating the material energy. It exists for some time, and then at a certain point Mahavishnu again absorbs it into his body. All the elements are annihilated and the universe ceases to exist. Then again he'll create other universes, and so forth. So the spirit soul is projected into this illusory arrangement. And this is analogous to the person being projected into an illusion created by the computer. The illusion also exists in the sense that the person in the illusion experiences it, if he's projected into the computer-generated world. And also there's a computer there, which is real, and there's a programmer. That would correspond to Mahavishnu and his energy. That is, Mahavishnu corresponds to the programmer and the computer corresponds to his energy in that metaphor. But the universe as an actual structure is not the ultimate thing. It's merely an appearance created by the computer program. So that's the analogy. Another interesting aspect of this is that virtual realities can have many different levels. You can easily see how you can do this with a computer program, because you're not just limited to objects within three-dimensional space. You can create an illusion of three-dimensional space, or you could create other illusions. You could arrange for the person within a given illusory three-dimensional space to go through a transition and enter into a different illusory three-dimensional space. All this could be done within the computer in a virtual reality. And we can expect that shortly this will become commercially available so that people can experience this. In fact, it'll be the successor to the video arcade type games where you look down at a little screen and see Pac-Man zipping around on a flat plate. The successor to this will be a situation where you go into a world and experience it, and you meet Pac-Man in 3D, who comes to try and gobble you up. And then you have to somehow defeat him. So, in one sense, that's the kind of world that we're in. But it's created by the ultimate video games programmer, which would be Mahavishnu. So, that's a preface. I wanted to just indicate some things about what is in the universe according to Vedic literature. There's a description of how Krishna and Arjuna went to meet Mahavishnu, which is quite interesting. Just in the Bhagavatam, what is stated here is fairly brief. The translation here is, Having thus advised Arjuna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead had Arjuna join him on his divine chariot, and together they set off toward the west. The Lord's chariot passed over the 7 islands of the middle universe, each with its ocean and its 7 principal mountains. Then it crossed the Lokaloka boundary and entered the vast region of total darkness. In that darkness, the chariot's horses, Shaibya, Sugriva, Meghapushpa, and Balahaka, lost their way. Seeing them in this condition, O best of the Bharatas, Lord Krishna, the supreme master of all masters of yoga, sent his Sudarshan disc before the chariot. That disc shone like thousands of suns. So that's the description that is given here of Arjuna and Krishna traveling in a chariot drawn by horses through outer space. Some people might not like the idea of a horse-drawn chariot going through outer space. But we can say a few things about that. Let's see. First of all, Srila Prabhupada made some interesting statements. Here in the Krishna book, referring to this same section, he says, seated on his chariot with Arjuna, Krishna began to proceed north, crossing over many planetary systems. These are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam as Sapta Dvipa. Dvipa means island. All these planets are sometimes described in the Vedic literature as Dvipas. The planet on which we are living is called Jambudvip. Outer space is taken as a great ocean of air, and within that great ocean of air there are many islands, which are the different planets. In each and every planet there are oceans also. In some of the planets the oceans are of salt water, and in some of them there are oceans of milk. In others there are oceans of liquor, and in others there are oceans of ghee or oil. There are different kinds of mountains also. Each and every planet has a different type of atmosphere. Krishna passed over these planets and reached the covering of the universe.